Hello, hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Garrett Bake, your brother in arms, and welcome to another episode of The Tactical Businessman. Today's topic: priorities. That's right, I said that with a little accent. Not that I'm from the South, because I'm not, and I've only been there once or twice. But anyway, so if you know me, you know that I was a police officer for 15 years in the Phoenix metro area. Thoroughly enjoyed working there, the people that I met, the experiences that I had, some highs, some lows, some stuff in between, just a little bit of everything. I retired, it's coming up on a year and a half now, and I still try and stay close with, the department, with some of the friends that I had, the people that I worked with. So I try and do ride-alongs occasionally. And last week I was able to go on a ride-along with a good friend of mine. And we had a very interesting experience. Now, if you've ever had the opportunity to go on a ride along with a police officer, I'm sure you've seen some things that you, first of all, wish you could unsee. But second of all, you probably had a good time. Now, understand that ride-alongs for me are different than they are for the normal person. Why? Because I did it for 15 years. So for me, the day-to-day regular types of calls, they don't do anything for me. I dealt with them for years. But I always seem to find something different. I always seem to find something that's outside of even what I've experienced before. And this experience last week was no different. We started in the early afternoon, and, we handled a couple of we'll call them low priority calls, helping out another officer on a traffic stop. But I may share that story later, but that's not what this one is about. Well, another officer asked for some assistance. There was a call that was holding. An older gentleman had gotten into a fight with his two stepsons. Now, the older gentleman was in his late 60s, and his stepsons were both in their 40s, right? So it wasn't the typical scenario, and it's not something that you would normally expect. He told the officers that the stepsons had physically harmed him, right? And so we go to meet this gentleman in the parking lot of the police station. You listen to what he has to say, and he's talking about it. And the entire argument that preceded this fight was all centered around a water bill. Now, most of you pay a water bill, and you know what this is like. It's normally not over $100, right? Well, according to this man, the water bill that they were arguing over was $1,600. $1,600. That's quite a bit of money. Apparently, the city had turned off the water and put a lock on it, but someone had cut the lock, and so they'd been going for a while longer. But anyway, eventually the city shuts off the water. So he had been somewhere, he'd been gone somewhere, and he gets home and the water's off, right? And so this argument ensues. The argument turns physical with one son and then physical with the other one. And it was rather interesting to hear this man talk about a physical altercation, all dealing with water, right? But hey, I'm not here to judge. So what we have to do next is go to the house and get, of course, the other side of the story. We go to this house, and his wife was living there with these two adult sons, their wives, and their children. So there was probably 10 people in the house. The house was nice. Like, it wasn't in a bad neighborhood. It was in a middle-class neighborhood. It was nice. We walked in. It wasn't dirty. It didn't smell like anything. And we go inside, and immediately the mother, gets a little agitated, of course, because she doesn't want to have to deal with any of this. And then, of course, the two sons get agitated because now they're dragged into this. And long and short of it, we're sitting there listening to this other side of the story. And they're talking about the fact that the father was the aggressor, that he was yelling and screaming and cursing. He was the one that physically put hands on each of the sons first, so on and so forth. And they, of course, retaliated. And then, of course, we're in 2019, and everybody got a cell phone. So instead of breaking up the fight, there was one of the wives that the sons' wives that actually recorded most of the incident. which is good actually, because, it told the truth of what actually happened. But anyway, this took some time, right? You got to interview both of the sons, then you got to interview the mom, then you got to interview the sons' wives, and then you see if the kids saw anything. And it's just a lot of people to interview. So we're standing around, and I'm just kind of observing what's happening and listening to the stories. And one of the daughters goes into the kitchen, and it was an open floor plan. So we were in the living room. We see the kitchen and the dining room and everything. Goes into the kitchen and is scraping a saucepan on the stove. And she goes over to the sink, and there's a big metal pot, like a big one. I don't know what they're called. I just know you can make tamales in them. They're really deep. But it's got water in it, and she pours water in there and kind of scrapes it off and is trying to clean it off. And I realized that they still don't have running water. And there's two of those big metal pots on the island there in the kitchen. And I'm like, well, that kind of sucks not having water. But again, I'm looking around going, this doesn't really make sense because it looks like a middle-class house and it looks like the son's work. So, just kind of head scratching. Well, one of the younger children, he must have been like 10, comes out of his room and he's got some earphones on, and he goes and he sits at the table. And I'm watching him, and he's got his phone, which is not out of the ordinary. And then he's playing Fortnite on his phone. And I'm like, again, not out of the ordinary. So I'm listening to the conversation, and again, the argument about the water and who said what and who did what and back and forth. And it strikes me as I'm standing there. They had a choice to make in this house. Now, I don't know if it was a collective choice, an individual choice, but it was a choice nonetheless. And here was the choice. The choice was water or Wi-Fi. Water or Wi-Fi. So they had no functioning water, a bill, at least by all accounts, over $1,600, but they had Wi-Fi. Now, Wi-Fi, decent Wi-Fi, costs anywhere between $80 and $100. In other words, the pretty much same price as water service. So this family had chosen at some point along their journey through life that the Wi-Fi was more important than the water. And I sat there kind of shaking my head because it didn't make any sense to me. Sure, we all love our phones, and sure, we all love our games and all those things. But water, seriously? I love a shower, trust me. And I love drinking water. Like, water is the foundation for everything that we do, right? You can survive without food. You can't survive without water. So here we are, one of the basic human needs being replaced by technology, and not in a good way. And so as we left the house, I made this observation to my friend, and he started laughing, of course. And, we had a rather interesting conversation in the car talking about this exact thing. Water or Wi-Fi. Water or Wi-Fi. And I started to think more about like my life. And I started to think about the instances where I would put one thing before the other. And it's really interesting because it happens more often than not, where something that is an option, that isn't a necessity, takes priority over that does. And so it's anything, right? And you can apply this. Marriage or Wi-Fi, right? Wi-Fi over marriage. In other words, you'd rather play around on your phone than you would try and have a conversation with your wife. Wi-Fi over business. You'd rather scroll through Facebook, comment on people's Instagram or Snapchat, watch something on ESPN than you would make the sales call. You would rather distract yourself with something technology-based than you would figure out why it is that you're being less productive than you should be, why you're not getting stuff done. And then it's 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night, your wife wants you at home, but because you spent so much time choosing Wi-Fi over work, you can't go home because you haven't gotten the things done that you said you were going to do. Now, each of these examples are examples from my own life. So I ask you the same question. Can you say the same thing? Wi-Fi over work, Wi-Fi over family, or Wi-Fi over water? See, we're all in the same boat. just in different levels. I, for the longest time, thought I was better than everyone and everything. And I'm sure you feel the same way sometimes as well. But the truth is, we're all making decisions. The question is, are the decisions leading us to where we want to go? Are the decisions going to help us survive? Or if we continue down the path, are they ultimately going to, quote unquote, destroy us, kill us? See, if this family wanted to long enough, yes, they live in the city, but if they wanted to long enough, they could literally destroy their lives for lack of water, but they had Wi-Fi. And you could destroy your marriage picking Wi-Fi over your wife. Got to figure it out now. Wi-Fi or work, Wi-Fi or wife, Wi-Fi or water, all the W's. But listen, in all seriousness, you want to get more out of life, you have to make the tough decisions. See, here's the crazy part. You get to choose the decision. You get to choose it, right? Welcome to 2019. You live in America. There's not really an oppressive government. Like, you get to make the decision. But what you don't get to choose is the consequence. You don't get to choose what happens. There's always a price to pay. So you want to work less, then you need to learn to work smarter, i.e. your decisions have to be more in line with what it is that you ultimately want. You want to get home at 4 o'clock to be able to coach your son's baseball team? Then you need to pick work over Wi-Fi. You want to be able to have a more passionate, intimate relationship with your wife? Cool. Wife over Wi-Fi. It's not as hard as we make it. But every decision that we make, we have to live with the consequences, positive or negative. So the challenge for you today is choose water over Wi-Fi. All right, that's all I got for you. As always, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one.